Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals.
Bienvenido a la informe de control animal. Hey, did it. How did I do? Welcome to the Animal Control Report podcast.
I feel like we need to apologize to the Spanish-speaking community.
No, I think I did on probably a C. Did I get a C? A D plus? Is it a passing grade? What did I say?
I mean, you were close, I guess.
Well, welcome to the Animal Control Report with your hosts,
Ashley Bishop
and Ashley Bishop.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, so that's the Animal Control Report podcast. We're here in all languages. You just might have to put it through a translator app to see what we say. We're really trying to be, fluid. Check us out, keepithumane.com, keepithumane.com. All the socials, the Animal Control Report, or Keep It Humane. Both of those. There's socials everywhere. I don't even know anymore. So many things. TikTok,
Instagram.
What's your favorite social media platform? I'm curious.
Facebook and LinkedIn has been I don't do much of anything else other than
in life or social media?
Social media.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. I must say that the TikTok has, I can spend hours just.
That's why I don't go on it anymore.
It's awful, but
But some of the animal videos are cute.
They are, honestly. I mean, even some of the body cam photo or videos too are interesting to watch. So there's things for all people on the TikToks.
There is, and when you were saying body like that, I thought you were going to say body count videos, and you can go down that rabbit hole too on TikTok.
Oh yeah. You just all it takes is one video to send your For You page on and
then your algorithm just changes. And we're just on one today. This is going to be episode Final Boss, Animal Hoarding, LuAnne Strickland Addiction. I can't talk again. That's normal. We're excited about that. We've done a 3-part series. This is the final series. So this is part 3 of LuAnne Strickland, Hoarding Reimagined. If you haven't listened to episode 1 and 2, you may want to go back and start there. Or you might just want to watch the final edition and be fine with it. But
it'll be the final countdown.
Can I get something off my chest really quick?
Uh-oh. Maybe.
Get it off your chest. Speaking of getting it off your chest, I got this nice new hoodie. Humane Law In-Service Training. Shout out to Humane Law In-Service Training. You can Google that and find it nowhere on the internet. But if you Google kdhurst.com, it'll take you to his page. That's the dude, as he's known. The dude.
Some former coworkers of mine got to meet the dude.
He is he just did the training in Wisconsin.
Yep.
He's the dude. He's the dude. He's part of the Keep It Humane podcast network, and he also has the Don't Fuck Up the Crime Scene podcast as well. So check that out if you're a fan of podcasts and a fan of the dude. There's both of those. So what else we got? I got to get something off my chest. What is the deal? I want to understand. And I'm not asking this as like a manager of animal control or an animal control officer or like anyone related to the profession or a host of an animal control podcast. I'm asking this generally as just a normal person in life. what the fuck is the deal with people walking their dogs off leash just in the neighborhood? What is going on here, people?
What is the deal with people walking their dogs in a fucking stroller?
Well, can we
Hold
tackle
on.
one thing at a time?
Hold on.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get back to that because you got 17 dogs. You got to put them in a stroller. Um, what is the reason?
Because they have to be dogs, Dan.
But elaborate on that.
Apparently restrictions are bad and teaching your dog to have manners and safety is nobody's concern but everybody else's.
Or is it liberating? Like is it selfishness? Is it like one symptom of narcissism? Like what? I just want to know.
Well, because clearly they have trained their dogs so well that they don't ever react or do anything that they shouldn't ever do. And so they don't ever have to worry about being uh surprised by the fact that their dog, sees something that they decide, fuck it, I'm not going to listen today.
Hmm.
There are
I don't
just
know.
so many things that could happen, God.
Yeah.
But I have little dogs, so it's like, the world is scary for the little dogs, regardless if you're on a leash or not on a leash. It just kind of is what it is. We have to watch for hawks here. We're behind a
Yeah.
huge green belt, and my poor kiddos, you can't leave them outside for 2 seconds. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I know we have several citizens, that we have dealt with that, just refuse.
Yep.
And then when something happens, they're like, well, it was the other person's fault.
Nope.
No,
So is it pure naivety or is it actually like,
it's just defiance, I feel like.
or is it a choice? Like,
Superiority.
so there's this guy in my neighborhood, and I
Uh-oh.
feel like this guy could like I think he means well. I do. I think like sometimes people just don't know better in some aspects. I think he means well. And so he has a dog that has behavioral issues, but he walks it off leash. And so I let my dog, Mooney's kind of bomb proof. He's kind of bomb proof. So I let Mooney meet him. But I was watching that dog's body language like this. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, that's how my eye was when I was like this the whole time. But his body language, man, that like if Mooney wasn't Mooney, other dogs would react to it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Oh, yeah, it does.
why are you walking a dog that has this type of behavioral issue in a neighborhood where it's full of people and other dogs? So I just don't get it.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Got it off my chest.
Alrighty then.
So for those that don't know, again, LuAnne Strickland was a hoarder. She started in the early 80s with her hoarding activities, and it really just continued to progress. The state of Colorado got into it and had lawsuits against, or not lawsuits, but litigation against, well, that's the same thing, had open cases against her. And she continued to operate for several years. She popped back up in 2013. We got a hold of those records thanks to the Colorado, it's the Pet Animal Care Facilities Act. We got a hold of that stuff through open records. They provided some photos and some documentation when they went in, and then through that, we'll kind of break it down and add some photos into the video version. So on YouTube, under the Animal Control Report, we're keeping you humane, and then you can watch it on Spotify as well. Either way. So Bishop, so you were the one who was able to obtain the documents through the open records request.
Yes.
And what jumped out? What was the first thing that when you started going through all this stuff, what really jumped out to you? What record was like the most damning or important that you saw?
I mean, the photos were pretty intense, and I know we're struggling with that today because technology is great. But there's a Chihuahua that literally has no hair. I'm assuming Chihuahua has no hair, but is covered in scabs. His nails are almost growing into his paws. He has ulcers on his eyes. And that alone, like just to have that one image. Now, they didn't send a ton of them. There's only about 9 photos total,
Which
but
is interesting because you would think on a scale
there would
of,
have been a ton.
do you think they just didn't? I kind of feel like they just didn't take the photos.
I don't, well, we talked about the fact that, who her husband was and how the internet seems to have been scrubbed of everything. Um, so yeah, I was very surprised by the fact that there was only 9 photos that were sent. Um, because they're absolutely, especially when we're talking about, there was 170 some animals in one of the investigations because there was multiple. You can tell by the photos that these dogs have, or that this dog in particular had been living like this for quite some time. Literally a hairless rat. Um, and that doesn't happen in just a day. And if there's any kind of treatment, there should have been some kind of regrowth and things like that, and there wasn't.
Well, we'll start with I'm going to just start with that inspection report that we received because I think that has a lot of good information on it. The business name, and it's changed, I guess, or it changed through the years to LuAnne's Animals. And this was from 2013. Inspection date was October 10th, and the type of inspection was routine. Failure reason, okay. The inspection that yields evidence of one or more critical violations that directly and immediately affect animals' health and welfare. Note, the inspection was executed with a criminal warrant that provided access to the residence and other areas of the facility that were previously deemed as areas not inhabited by animals. Animals were found in the residence and in outbuildings and had not been previously accessible for inspection. This is a failed inspection that yields evidence of one or more critical violations that directly and immediately affect the animal's health and welfare. There were approximately 74 animals residing on this property. Really quick, was there anything in the records that you saw, Ashley, that showed a new complaint come in for them to go out there, or was this a routine inspection?
I didn't see anything specific.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
Yeah.
Texas Bishop, did you find anything?
No, I didn't. And I will say, if you didn't listen to last week's podcast about the USDA and them being sued by the ASPCA,
Yes.
this inspection report is what the USDA should be doing.
Isn't that
Right
true?
here. Right here. They state the statute of, what's wrong, and then they go in and say, at the time of this inspection, this is what we observed.
Absolutely. So we're going to break it down. And we'll share this. So I'll start with the animal care, and then we can pass the buck. So that way, our listeners don't have to get tortured by me the whole time. Animal care, 1010, 2020 or 2013. So basically, sick or injured animals must be provided with timely care as appropriate for illness or injury, or euthanized humanely under supervision of the facility's attending veterinarian as set forth in PACFA 3580-102. So PACFA, again, Pet Animal Care Facilities Act, and that 3580-102 is in the Colorado state statutes. At the time of this inspection, I observed several dogs and cats with illnesses needing veterinary attention. These illnesses included animals with tumors, fleas, alopecia, dental disease, tumors, an eye ulcer, lacerations, ear mites. See photographs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. There were no documentation of treatments or follow-up treatments for animals that were examined and prescribed treatment by a veterinarian previously. Deceased animals were found in the residence and on the property in trash containers and plastic storage bags. Woof, that alone right there, that's like game over.
Yeah, like at this point, what I'm just so speechless a lot of times when we go through stuff like this. It's just, everybody wants us to do everything in the world to help animals, and then you get things like this and they go nowhere. And it's just
Yeah, like she should have been at that. Like we, as again, if you followed this, if you followed like what we've done here with this series, like she should have been shut down. Maybe not when the kittens or the cats died in that fire. Maybe that was like, okay, that's a little bad, accidental, whatever, whatever. But then once we started to go through and they like seized 300 animals, etc., there should have been a lifelong ban on her then.
agreed. Agreed. And then we're going through, we'll continue to read this report, and even worse stuff is happening weeks later.
Yep.
So this violation type is grooming, and this was done on 10/31 of 2013. Dogs and cats shall be groomed to prevent severely matted hair and overgrown nails, and so that they have freedom of movement and can perform normal bodily functions. At the time of this inspection, I observed 4 dogs that were severely matted and 1 with overgrowth of the nails. The dogs noted with severely matted coats included a black Cocker Spaniel, 2 Shih Tzus, and a Golden Retriever mix. A Yorkshire Terrier mix housed in the cat room had overgrown nails. See photographs 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. The
So where
next.
are all those photos?
Yeah, well, that's a great one. I don't know why they didn't send them. It's a great question.
So the next one is general requirements for the same day, 10/31 of 2013. Premises housekeeping. The building and ground shall be kept clean, in good repair, and free of trash. Weeds shall be mowed or cut down in enclosures where animals are kept or exercised. At the time of this inspection, the enclosures and yards were overgrown with weeds and riddled with trash. See photos 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Next one on the same day, feeding and watering. Animal food shall be served in containers and be of such nutritional value necessary to meet the normal daily nutritional needs for the condition and size of the animal. At the time of this inspection, I observed food in unsealed barrels outside that was molded and food in the cat room that had mold growing on it. See photos 24 and 25. So this violation type is pest control. Pest control. All shelters shall be free from infestations of vermin, insects, or other pests. Food contaminated by rodents must be discarded. At the time of this inspection, I observed evidence of rodents, fleas, roaches, and flies in the residence, cat shelter, outbuildings, and yards and cars. See photos 31 and 32. I mean, that there in itself, that's 3 damning areas of this act that how
Yeah.
that's already practically 3 of the 5 freedoms that you're encroaching on at that point, between feeding, pest control, and just general upkeep.
Absolutely. I again, I want people to understand like this person had a large area of land in the rural, like kind of farm area of Colorado. So she wasn't like super close to her neighbors, and it allowed for some of that autonomy to be able to operate in this way that allowed animals just to continue to suffer. Now,
It's hard enough to do with 4. How do you do it with 400?
not lying.
So, cleaning and sanitation, the due date was the date following the initial inspection. They needed to have cleaning of pet animal enclosures. The animal waste shall be removed from primary enclosures daily or more frequently if needed to prevent contamination of pet animals and to reduce disease hazards and odors. Animal food and water containers shall be kept clean and sanitary. Other cleaning, food and water containers and all other utensils shall be cleaned and sanitized with the use of heat, chemical solution, or a dishwasher using hot water or chemical sanitizing solutions. Pet animal food and water dishes shall be cleaned and sanitized daily for more often or more often if necessary to maintain sanitary conditions. Waste disposal. Animal and food wastes, used bedding, debris, and other organic waste shall be removed from the pet animal facility and shall be removed from the premises weekly. At the time of inspection, I observed piles and mounds of animal waste of several months' duration in the residence where 3 animals were housed. I observed buildup of feces of several weeks' duration in some of the outdoor enclosures. Deceased animals were found in the residence and on the property in trash containers and plastic storage bags. I observed water containers with contaminated putrid water, enclosures that had not been cleaned and sanitized in the cat building, and no evidence of either cleaners or sanitizers being utilized. I observed that the dumpster on the property was overflowing with trash that had not been removed from the premises weekly. See photographs 31 through 44. Wow. Why were they not just seized and
It,
stopped?
and I know it's 2013, but like that's only 11 years. Like that's not that long ago. I feel like
No,
animal welfare was like progressed at that point. You know what I
that's when I
mean?
started my career.
Well, that can explain a lot then.
I know. It was because I wasn't there.
Amen to that. Oh, by the way, Lee,
Yeah.
according to the USDA, you don't have to clean any bowls or anything like that
Yeah.
for 2 weeks unless it needs it.
You missed last episode, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
So clearly
Wow.
over here, all water dishes and food dishes need to be cleaned and sanitized daily or more often. You don't say.
Wow. That's crazy. I, Dan, you did make a statement earlier, though, about her getting permanently revoked from having animals.
hmm
There, there isn't any state that I know of that can do that.
Judge
You
can do
can do
whatever
it.
they want. Judge can do whatever they want. They like sure there has to be like some sort of state statute in place, but they can impose that and then it can be appealed because there's no grounds to do it. But judges can do whatever they want.
Because I thought the max was 10 years.
Colorado, I think, is 5.
Yeah, there's somebody I think that has 10 because I know actually I can do 3 to 10 years, well, could have done 3 to 10 years in one of my jurisdictions locally just for having barking dog citations. But
The manpower to keep up with that, though, you know what I
right?
Yeah,
mean? I
yeah.
just, we barely have enough staff to cover what we're trying to do now. And then,
Yeah, but
you
then
give,
we have LuAnne Strickland.
yeah.
I mean, everything is within your ability of having uh to use your own judgment on
No,
it.
for sure, for sure. And I think one thing I've carried to our assistant supervisor, she makes it very clear that when we have big cases like this to follow up, and she's really good at that. She's so good at that. Just making sure that we ensure that these people continue to do what they're supposed to be doing, and checking in, even if it's, every 6 months or once a year, just to ensure that we're still on a good path.
Um, as we're reading through this report, I don't think that what they did was wrong, but they absolutely set her up for failure at the same time. Because we're talking 70 some animals, and some of these are due dates of the following day. There is no way that, getting all of that waste taken care of in 24 hours is possible, which is almost a good thing on their part. They're being like, hey, we are giving you the opportunity to figure out how to fix it. So you either fix it or we're going to come back in, and I would think that the intention would be to then remove them.
Right.
Um, so just an interesting thought that I had.
What's interesting too, in one of the other documents that I'm looking at here, so this document was a statement received by the sheriff's office by the veterinary clinic that was part of this. And it clearly states in there that they have noticed the decline and lack of willingness from the defendant to provide follow-up treatment suggested by the veterinarians. I mean, that this was on October 15th. So that is in the middle of all of these due dates on the inspection.
So she's already not complying.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
she had that. I think, I mean, we talked about the types of hoarders in the beginning of this series, and she had that. She was defiant. She was, in a sense, she had that defiance of an exploiter, right? Where an exploiter is just like, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. This is mine. Like,
Yeah.
and then what highlighted all of that is she had that overwhelmed caregiver because she couldn't do it. But I think at the end of the day, like if you cut it all away, she truly was the rescuer that just didn't think that anyone anyone but herself
Could do a
provide.
good job.
Yep, 100%.
So the next category was for the animal care, and structural standards requirements were each animal shelter shall be constructed of building materials that ensure a facility is of sound physical structure, be maintained in good repair, protect animals kept there from injury, ensure containment of pet animals within the pet animal facility, and restrict entry from other animals and humans from outside by either a building or a perimeter fence designed to be escape-proof. At the time of this inspection, I observed enclosures that did not contain the dogs, allowing for them to gain access to other enclosures, the common area, and beyond the perimeter of the facility. See photographs 45 and 46. So, do you think she was actually spaying and neutering all these animals?
Absolutely not.
So, if they're jumping into other enclosures, how many more was she reproducing?
Right.
Water and washrooms. Washrooms and sinks, readily accessible washrooms or sinks shall be provided, convenient to all work areas to ensure maintenance of personal hygiene by animal caretakers. A sink in good repair shall be provided for washing and sanitizing equipment. A dishwasher which utilizes heat or chemical sanitizing solution may suffice. Single service soap and towel dispensers must be available and at all hand washing sinks. At the time of this inspection, it did not appear that there was a working washroom or sink available in the residence or outbuildings available for personal hygiene by animal caretakers. Photograph 47.
Which is just in general disgusting. Also, just really quick, we're doing a quick giveaway alert. Giveaway alert. If you know, you just have to email the show. If you know, and I'll give away 2 free items to the first 2 people that email the show that know what city they say washrooms instead of washrooms. Again, washrooms. You will get a free gift. Email Daniel@keepithumane.com.
Are you going to message us and at least tell us the answer?
Sure. Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
I was going to say, a lot of the veterinarians I worked with still said washroom.
There you go. All right, washroom.
Of course.
Of course. All right, here we go. Heating, cooling, and ventilation. Which, again, you have to know, Colorado, like people are like, oh, it's the mountains. Well, in the summer, it is the desert, and especially out there where we get closer to Kansas, it gets hot. It is hot in the hundreds. So it's very.
I learned that the hard way my first semester of college.
It's hot, huh?
Fort Collins. I was like, there's no air conditioners here. What?
Bruh.
What is that? And what?
Yeah, it's a hurt venue.
Yeah.
Ventilation. Indoor housing of pet animals shall adequately ventilate with fresh or filtered air to minimize odors and moisture and to provide for the health and comfort of the animal at all times. Means for ventilation can be mechanical or natural, providing odors are minimal and the temperature range set forth immediately above is maintained with the requirements consistent with the species. At the time of this inspection, I observed that the odor in the residence was excessive to the point that respirators were necessary to enter the residence safely. What I don't see here, what I would love to see is if they had an actual ammonia reading. Um, just because again, we live in a time where analytics, data, all that stuff is important. Electric power and lighting. So again, all this stuff is coming from what the PACFA standards are, and then they're talking about what the violation is. So lighting, uniformly, is that a word? Uniformly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Why does that seem weird? Uniformly.
because
Distributed
you're Dan.
Distributed natural and or artificial lighting shall be provided to permit routine inspections and to facilitate routine cleaning. While avoiding excessive illumination to any pet animal, each pet animal shall have light available for a minimum of 8 hours per day. At the time of this inspection, I observed that there were not adequate lighting to inspect all areas of the residence where animals were housed. We'll go to isolation here. This is 10/11. That's the due date. So again, they went in on the 10th, and now the due date to correct these issues sounds like it would be the 11th. Isolation area, except as set forth immediately below, there shall be an isolation area available for pet animals that are suspected of or under treatment for communicable diseases and not at a veterinary medical facility where the animal will be segregated from the rest of the pet animal population. This area shall have adequate ventilation as described in subsection B3G above. The minimum space requirements for primary enclosures for each space set forth in subsection C below shall be used for the minimum space requirements for the isolation area. Unless a specific exemption is obtained from the commissioner, all shelters which impound, adopt, sell, or harbor dogs, cats, birds, or other small animals, the isolation areas shall be separate room with separate exhaust ventilation, non-recirculating, effective per the timetable below. This isolation room shall have a floor to ceiling walls. At the time of this inspection, I observed that there is no isolation area that meets the requirements of this regulation at the facility. There is no request for an exemption from this requirement on file for this facility. See for photographs 48 and 49. Each primary enclosure in which a dog spends the majority of its day shall follow these requirements. So how big are they? It breaks all that down. And then at the bottom, though, what it says is at the time of the inspection, there were 3 Chihuahuas housed in a 4 square foot enclosure in the cat building. It's not clear how long the dogs were housed in the enclosure, but each dog required at least a minimum of 4.5 square feet if housed for up to 5 days, and additional space of over 5 days that is indicated above. And so they have a photo of that somewhere in their archives. But it sounds like she was just packing them, some of them into small enclosures.
So, Dan, I'm curious since you worked in Colorado. So, when this was enacted, were all the existing facilities mandatory, or were they to like make all these changes for like these?
Yeah. So
There's
good question. From my knowledge, there was a grace period to come into compliance. There wasn't like a grandfather in, like, oh, just because you suck and we started these, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to do all these changes. I'm pretty sure they had a grace period of when they had to get into compliance. And I still have friends who work for that department. It's a pretty cool department, and they're actually doing some great things there. They just brought in one of my old bosses from several years ago. His name is Joe Stafford. He worked for the Humane Society of the Pikes Peak region. And he taught me a lot, man. I was inspired by that guy. I really was. And then he went up to Iowa for several years, but he just came back to that agency or to the state. I don't exactly know what his role is. I don't know if he's over PACFA or the Bureau of Animal Protection, which is over the state as well, or part of the state, I should say, as well. But they do some great work. However, no matter what, like they're understaffed like a lot of us are, and there's just a lot of facilities that need inspections, a lot of rescues in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So that causes some backlog. So even though they have these regulations, uh, it's hard for them to get out there routinely to make sure people aren't going crazy.
Interesting.
We don't have to read the full record keeping thing that they break down. It's basically saying that you have to keep records of your animals, and at the time of the inspection, there were no records available with any information of the dogs or cats being sheltered. There was no method for individually identifying the animals, period, on file, which was crazy.
Yeah, so then the next one, as Ashley had mentioned earlier, general requirements goes in. The due date was 10/11. No more than 5 dogs over 6 months of age may be housed in any one common area at any one time. At this time of inspection, there was approximately 17 dogs housed in the common area of the shelter yard. See photograph 51. Like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
And then for the next one, at the time of this inspection, I observed 2 cats housed in enclosures at the cat building that exceeded 6 pounds in weight. So if they exceed 6 pounds in weight, they need 6 or more square feet. So, according to the standards. So they were being housed in enclosures that were 4 square feet. Any cat over 6 pounds must have a minimum of 6 square feet of space. So, which that's interesting to me because I mean that's a lot of space. And I'm thinking to our shelters, there's no possible way that our shelters would be able to do that.
One thing you'll both probably find interesting is PACFA had no like legal, nah, that's not the right word, had no criminal law enforcement abilities. Everything was civil and still is civil. So they do everything civilly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so if we go to the document that we have on file, it is titled Strickland TDL. And so that's the disciplinary proceedings against LuAnne Strickland. And so they basically can file like things like cease and desists, et cetera, et cetera. And we don't have to get into all the legal jargon at the top, but what I wanted to read really quickly is the following alleged facts, if proven, constitute one or more violations of the Pet Care Facilities Act. So during the inspection of the property in Strasbourg on October 10th, 11 different dogs exhibited clinical signs of medical conditions requiring veterinary care. 4 dogs were severely matted or had overgrown nails. Enclosures and yards were overgrown with weeds and riddled with trash and debris. Food kept in barrels outdoors contained mold. Food in the cat room contained mold. Maybe mold is I don't know. Is it tasty?
No.
Oh, you know what? Maybe that was her way of ensuring that they had some sort of antibiotic while they were eating.
I was just thinking that.
It's, one-stop shop. Cats in the cat colony room did not have access to adequate water. There was evidence of rodents, fleas, and flies in the residence in the cat colony room. There were no records available with any information of the dogs or cats being sheltered. There was no method of individually identifying the animals. There were 17 dogs housed in one common area. There were 2 cats, 1 yellow tabby and 1 tortoiseshell that exceeded 6 pounds in weight, being housed in enclosures measuring 4 square feet. And basically, please be advised. This is the closeout of the letter that they sent from Dr. Kate Anderson. She was the PACFA administrator at that time. Please be advised that you have the right to submit any written information, data, or arguments with respect to the allegations that may be. Let's try that again. Please be advised that you have the right to submit any written information, data, or arguments with respect to the allegations that may have any bearing on the department's decision to pursue possibly agency proceedings. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
That may have any bearing on the department's decision to pursue possible agency proceedings. To be considered, any such information must be received by the department within 20 days of the date of this letter. So again, there's no mention like, I don't, and we might have to be able to do, we would potentially have to do a records request with Adams County, but I don't believe animal control ever got involved in that aspect. I think it was all done through the civil process, which was PACFA, even though they had cruelty violations that were criminal.
It's tough. It's real tough. Because at the end of the day, we all know animals suffered. I don't understand the logic sometimes when, I was reading one of the medical records here where they had
Did you
brought
read
in
Bonnie's?
I don't know, what is the name of this? I think it's a cat.
Yeah.
That first one on that
Yes.
first page. Yeah. This cat came in, lateral, meaning that it was, it came to the clinic and was not doing well, obviously, on its last bit is what it sounds like. And she refused euthanasia twice, even after the veterinarians had suggested it at that point. I mean,
Body condition score of 1 of 9.
1 of 9.
109.
Like, how? I don't know. I know of a lot of people in, the industry overall who are just like, we're not gonna, euthanize the animal. We're just gonna let them go on their own terms. Why, dude? Why? When we have the ability to make that, an easy way of stopping torture and suffering. I don't understand that mentality at all.
Well,
Yeah.
for Tassie's medical to go along with the pest control and the fleas and lice, severe anemia due to lice infestation.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is absolutely nuts.
Like
Please.
when I tell them, hey, you need to get fleas under control because it can lead to this.
Yeah.
It obviously happens, but a lot of times I use that more of a scare tactic of being like, hey, get your animal checked and, dealt with but for that to have actually happened
is bananas.
Yes.
Fleas I can understand, but lice?
That's so severe that like pretty much every single area of that animal's body is covered.
Yeah. And you think of just what that animal felt like.
Ugh. I can actually relate in some aspects because I had a case that we're gonna talk about at some point in life where a dog was hiding in the closet because it was so uncomfortable. Yeah.
Ugh.
It's really an interesting perspective. The law offices of Kay Clements out of Colorado. And this is coming from her on, did she date it at the bottom? No dates, but it would have been in that time frame. All right. Dear Mr. Lucero, again, I think that was the, I'm not sure what his position was, Nate Lucero at the time. Dear Mr. Lucero, I am the attorney for LuAnne Strickland, and I have something to say about the outrageous manner in which both Mrs. Strickland and I have been treated over the last 2 weeks. The treatment of me has paled in comparison to the inexcusable abuse sustained by Mrs. Strickland. I will address the treatment of me only briefly, however. I have been insulted, threatened with arrest, had several members of the sheriff's department reach for their gun when I simply reached in my pocket for a pen or started zipping up my coat. This has happened repeatedly. I have been physically grabbed and even pushed, Even since the raid, I have been threatened and insulted by adult services by a caseworker who made ridiculous statements and hung up on me when I refused to disclose to her my hourly rate for legal charges. But let me move on to the unbelievably harmful actions that have been taken against my 81-year-old client. At some point, on some vindictive information, the county achieved a search warrant against Mrs. Strickland, which was sealed. The search warrant was very broad and included theft of property and using animals in criminal activities as a basis for the warrant. It granted the right to search every inch of her property and all persons and automobiles without limitation or identification. It talked of potentially violent behavior in fear of the safety of the persons executing the search warrant. The county went to her property on Thursday, October 19th, with a dozen of trucks and perhaps more than 100 people, many armed, from all different county agencies and at least one state agency. Many were rude, insulting, threatening, and openly hostile. Woo! The result of this unprecedented assault on a noted 81-year-old woman are much of her property was seized, including many healthy animals. One reason given for the seizure of the healthy animals was that she would not be on the property after the raid and the search. Just really quickly, and we're going to talk about it at some point, People versus Spiegel here in California, People versus Spiegel. And that basically says, like, bro, if you can't care for one animal well, how are you going to be able to care for all the animals well? And this is case law, and it allows you then to impound all animals, though may be healthy, even if you have potential cruelty or neglect to one. So
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
72-hour hold. She was subjected to interrogation by incompetent and malicious psychologists who made materially false statements on her report in order to place Ms. Strickland on an involuntary hold for 72 hours. Not only did she make material false statements, she went to the hospital and intentionally poisoned the staff's opinion of both Miss Strickland and myself to the extent that Miss Strickland was denied her pain medication when I requested it for her. I was interrogated. Miss Strickland was openly and rudely insulted by the staff, which repeated statements, the false statements made by the county's psychologist. Miss Strickland was denied access to her life-sustaining medication and to all paperwork relating to that medication during the removal from her property. Her new bottle of narcotic pain medication is missing. During the 72-hour period, Miss Strickland's medication schedule was significantly missed, which what has resulted in harm to her heart, caused her intense pain. This lawyer writes for shit. Just saying, because I'm reading that as it's written.
I'm going to have to edit that because she's going to come back and sue you. Probably dead, though, honestly.
Probably. The medication in her home has been taken from her kitchen cabinet and thrown into the floor of a house that authorities deem unclean. Well, if it's not unclean, you know what? Removal from property. Miss Strickland and I were forced to a corner of the property so that we could not observe the treatment of her animals or the treatment of her other property. We were both told that we could not enter the property property under threat of arrest. She was then forcibly removed from the property and placed in the involuntary hold. Even though I requested information from the legal right to go back into the property, I was never told that it was legal to go back. The warrant expired yesterday. Condemnation. On October 10th, 2013, a notice of condemnation was placed on the front door, the back door, and the entrance gate of Miss Strickland's property. It is noteworthy that the condemnation sign covered up a sign that Miss Strickland has directing people not to leave unwanted animals on her property. The notice said that Miss Strickland could not occupy or reside in her home. There is no opportunity of a hearing and no notice. She was rendered homeless immediately after the search of her property and denied re-entry. The condemnation has been deemed illegal by the county's attorney office, as it was not pursuant to any law. On information and belief, her involuntary incarceration was pre-planned because of the intention to do a no notice and unlawful eviction from her home.
All right, so animals. Miss Strickland was worried about the animals during her involuntary hold and made telephone calls to ascertain whether any had been left behind and needed food, water, shelter, or care. She was assured that they were all taken and were all being cared for. This was not true. There were animals left behind that were injured by that person's participating in the raid, and there were animals that were denied access to food and water. Involuntary commitment to mental institution. Miss Strickland was taken by ambulance to a full-fledged mental hospital in Colorado Springs. She was evaluated by a psychiatrist and a psychiatric nurse practitioner, both whom agreed that she should be released immediately and that there were no reason to keep her. They are aware of the material factual misstatements that were made for the purpose of placing Miss Strickland involuntary in the mental institution. She was released in Colorado Springs, far from her home in Strasburg, even though she was told that she would be transported back by ambulance. Missing property and theft. Since the raid, her narcotic-based pain medication is missing. After the raid, her front gate was left open and certain items are missing from her property. Miss Strickland was treated very abusively and deprived of many of her rights. She has suffered public humiliation and government abuse. Physical abuse of Miss Strickland. During the raid and execution of the warrant, Miss Strickland was physically pushed and held. Miss Strickland is an 80-year-old woman who weighs approximately 90 pounds and stands 4'11". She has a heart condition and arthritis in her legs. She was not doing anything to warrant being physically grabbed or pushed. This caused her pain, which she was not able to treat because her medication was not provided to her. At present, I am demanding that the fee for care and housing of the animals be voluntarily waived by the county. I am further demanding that we have a meeting in which to discuss resolution of the issues concerning the welfare of the animals. No animal may be killed, and that's all capitalized. If you do not agree to a waiver of the $15,000 fee for care and feeding of the animals, I will file a motion in criminal court challenging the fee on the basis of the actions of the county officials. That hearing will be public. That sounds like a threat. Further, I expect that Miss Strickland will be treated with kindness and respect in the future. I, too, will be treated with respect, and my phone calls will be returned promptly.
Wow.
I appreciate, I really do. And I kind of just want to pause really quick and talk about, we may like make jokes and be like a little bit jaded to this type of stuff. But we also understand this is a mental health issue for hoarders. We also understand that attorneys are paid by people with these mental health issues. And so they are, going to do what they can to support their client. I do feel like this letter was written in, is haste the right way to say that? Can I use that word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like all this attorney was really trying to do was like set it up so that last paragraph was like, you do what I tell you to do because all these things that I witnessed, like it was completely threatening in that aspect. Like you did an illegal search, you were aggressive with my client who's 81. Look, I mean, sure, that's an 81-year-old woman, and I mean, unless she's like posing a threat, in which she may have been, like she may have been trying to get in the house or stopping the officers from doing stuff. But we also have to know there's two sides of this, and her story may be exaggerated for whatever goal she's trying to obtain.
Well, and it may just be exaggerated because she's 81 years old and has never been told no before and held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's very true. Well, when we think about this, like kind of bringing it all back to the end, and the first thing we started with. So if you go back several episodes ago to the first installment of Hoarding Unimagined, this was the first thing we read, December 28th of 1983. December 28th of 1983. Shelter fire. Wow. Shelter fire kills 99 cats, right? So, like, she was involved in this. So, this is 2013 now. We move forward. What's fast math? 1983 to 2013?
30 years.
That's 30 years. This is 30 years of animal hoarding. I, and I mean this in a kind way. I really am not trying to be mean. I am surprised she lived to 81 years old, being
Yeah.
around all the time, that disease, that disgust, right? All that stuff. Like I feel like I can never get my shirt right on these videos. Okay. I feel like I feel like she would have gotten something Giardia that had, like, I mean, it's not going to kill her, but like make her sick. I don't know.
Larval migraine is in the brain.
Worms,
Yes.
sites.
Cutaneous larval migraine.
Yes.
So
Maybe
I
she was only like 90 pounds because she had tapeworm.
mean, she was also only 4 feet 11.
Shh. I like my theory better.
Okay, cool. Well, that puts an end to the final boss of animal hoarding. Like, she was, we'll talk about her again throughout these episodes. I'm sure things will come up, and we'll always, LuAnne Strickland will be the benchmark. Like, I wish we could find the article, the video that showed after she passed away how many animals they pulled out of that house. But I want to say it was close to 400, and that was like 2017. So even after this in 2013, she still continued to operate until her passing. And all, truthfully, from what I gathered from this, and I may be a little biased, all in the name of no kill.
Yep.
You're not wrong. I mean, I'm just well, I've been sitting here while y'all have been reading and stuff, and I've been listening. I mean, just every single animal record is just something about, hematocrits very low due to infestation, body score of 1, 2.5,
How
1,
many
2.
blood transfusions were there from needing extra blood from
And
the
that's,
anemia?
yeah, and just from fleas, like something as simple as fleas, like
Yep.
absolutely insane. And then for her to, there's even a statement in here saying, owner was concerned about financial obligations and unsure if she would return for rechecks and follow-up blood work, and requested that she be able to return any unused topical flea treatments. I mean, right there. Come
Yep.
on.
Wow.
That's in the vet records, the vet records.
Man, I mean, it's just a complete disassociation to the issue that's at hand, right? Disassociation. Like, she just doesn't believe or want to believe or has the ability to believe that that's a problem. I mean, it was a major problem. Animals suffered. It's sad because at the end of the day, like, this whole idea behind animals like dying, etc., like, she ended up thinking she was doing better for those animals versus humane euthanasia. If that was going to be the case for that animal, keeping them in this hell, um, it's crazy to me. It's absolutely bonkers.
It is. It is. These poor animals.
Facebook's probably the one we're the most active on, but reach out to us. Tell us what your thoughts are on LuAnne Strickland. Have you guys actually had anybody in your community like LuAnne Strickland? Let's talk about it. So check us out on all of our socials, and as always, let's
Help people.
Help animals.
Humane.